Which of us would like to start?
Procrastination.
Or maybe as we rehearsed it in unison.
Shall we decide at the time?
Shall I say something?
Go on then.
Alright, I'll say something. So we're really just here to talk about there being no self. That's it, that's the beginning, the middle and the end of this. How we manage to say so much about it, I have no idea. Write so much about it, so many videos that we do. There's no self. That is the essence of what non-duality is pointing at. I was going to say means, it doesn't mean that, but it's pointing at that. So the normal, in heavy inverted commas, the normal experience of life, the usual, the common experience of life, we could say is of duality. And the simplest possible explanation for that is there seem to be there seems to be two things. Dualism, two things. And those two things are basically myself. I have a sense of myself as something that's existent and that's separate from everything else. So that's one of the two things, and the other of the two things is everything else. In other words, the world through which I seem to be moving through, a world full of other, apparently separate selves and objects and events and happenings and time and all of that good stuff. So that's the common experience that I live in separation is another common way of putting it. I live in separation, I live in it with a sense of my separateness from everyone and everything else. And the suggestion of these meetings, and meetings like these, is a very, very simple one. The suggestion is that we have to be quite careful about this word, that this sense of separation, that I'm a separate person with a life that I'm responsible for living and with choices to make about that life, that sense is simply an illusion. And the reason perhaps we need to be careful about that word illusion is because it's not saying it's just something just completely unreal, but it's something that is different to how it seems to be. So I seem to be this solid person with choices to make about something called my life and everything that goes with that, responsibility and a sense of a personal past I'm moving away from and a personal future I'm moving towards. I seem to be that, but in actuality that's not the case. In actuality, the sense that this is separate from that is an illusion. It's not what it seems to be. And the suggestion is that sense that this is separate from that, that I am moving through an external world, carrying with me perhaps this burden called my past, and moving towards this thing which may or may not be threatening or appealing, called my future. But that can simply collapse, and then it's just seen that what seems to be a solid person here is, I'm hesitating now, I could be hesitating for an hour or two now to find the right phrase or the right word to follow that, because it's actually ineffable, it can't be put into words. But the sense that this is separate and autonomous and has a life to live and makes choices about that life and has responsibilities and all of that can simply collapse, and it can, well, the phrase that's often used is it can simply be seen that there is seamless oneness. And perhaps it's really important to stress that word, that it's seen. It's seen. In other words, this isn't theory, it's not philosophy, the ideas don't matter. This could be seen and there could be no understanding whatsoever in the person or the character that sees it, and no ability to talk about it, and no ability to think about it, and it wouldn't matter, because this isn't about language or words, it's not philosophy. The ideas about this have no importance whatsoever, except that for some bizarre reason that I can never fathom, but it's obviously very real for some of us, except that for some reason some of us enjoy gathering together and talking about this. But the talking in a way is kind of irrelevant, because ultimately, and perhaps for a lot of apparent people frustratingly, all that eventually we can say is this is either seen or it's not seen. If it's not seen, then the grand illusion that I am living in separation, that I'm a separate person, continues, and if it is seen, then that grand illusion collapses. And it's seen that everything that seemed to belong to the person, my past, my future, my good works, my bad works, my memories, whatever it might be, that all of that is really, it all just collapses, the importance of that all just collapses. And then what's left is simply, I'm hesitating because I don't know whether to say, because then what's left is simply life, or is simply, this phrase that I'm sure is familiar to some of you, simply what's happening. Because all there actually is whatever's happening. A hand moving to make an emphasis, sound of a voice, feeling of the warmth of the air in the room, the sense of the pressure of a bum on a seat. That's what actually is, whatever's actually happening. So no past, no future. Well, of course there's a past, but only as a thought that might arise in this. Of course there's a future, but only as an expectation or a fear or an anxiety or as a hope that might rise in this. So actually all that phrase that I'm sure some of you, maybe many of you, maybe all of you will have come across maybe many times, all there is this, is absolutely literal. It's not a metaphor, it's not philosophical, there's no particularly deep thought that it is pointing at, it is simply a literal description. All there is this. No past, no future, no time, no space. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll hand over, is that in a way I'm always aware when I say that there's just this, no past, no future. In one way, or in some ways, that can be an incredibly challenging thing to hear, but in another way it's absolutely in the realm of what I call the bleeding obvious. It is in the realm of the bleeding obvious, isn't it? You don't really even have to think out. All there is this. Not this second, because a second has duration. Not this minute, because a minute has duration. All there is, all that actually exists, is whatever's appearing right now. Sound of a voice, etc. So.
Can I add? So maybe for someone who's never really heard of this or experienced this, it's quite easy to kind of get the internal state of this, which is, peace. There is no internal or external, but so this is peace that has this understanding. It's that lack of boundary is love, is the unconditional love. That's where there's the intimacy with all things, which brings an ease. Even when there's unease, like there's an acceptance of that. So there's a radical acceptance of everything that's occurring, even if it's kind of pushed away in some sense, even that's accepted. So there's coming to kind of rest where you are, which is very beautiful and very restful, but it has no comparison. It's as if nothing else had ever been known. Of course, this has always been the case. This has always been, there's the illusion of separation, but so it's so natural, and it's so that it seems to eradicate that sense of of reflecting on what was before. So it's just, you're just sitting with what is, but it's a kind of drunken sitting. It's kind of juicy. So it's not just like the seeing of emptiness can be rather cold. The seeing emptiness is just seeing that there's nothing and no one, but the love is what kind of restores that intimacy to life. So that part of it, that's why some people, quite a lot of people, after seeing this, they want to sit around, because usually outside, because that's nicer, if it's particularly at spring or summer and in nature, say, but it's just very, very absorbing, just the details, the wind, the breeze through the leaves and the trees. It's just, the agitation is gone, the running away is gone, the need for distraction, the need for doing, for being, for becoming, all that's kind of done away with, and it's just the simplicity of whatever is occurring, which could be just looking at a wall, like even that, the beauty of that, like everything is seen in a kind of perfection, which is understood only really in seeing it, because everything is, you know, like so many artists have tried to capture that just that perfection in the simple object or whatever. So, but everyone's gets, I think most people have some sort of sense of this, maybe momentarily, just a dropping away or a moment of stillness, that sort of internal state that kind of accompanies this, even when there's suffering.
Is this the non-duality meeting? Okay, buzzing you in.
Even that was beautiful.
Yeah, that's very nice. Maybe not as beautiful, but
The imperfection of it's perfect.
yeah, maybe not. Yeah, I should go on. Yeah, one of the other aspects of this is that the dropping away of authority, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about as well. So there's the ideals. Oh, hi. So the kind of crushing of pedestals, if you like, that hold of authority can be seen through too, which is incredibly liberating, and it's also quite isolating, because it doesn't necessarily help you getting on in the world, and for some people obviously motivation can drop away, and you know, you might find yourself having to renegotiate life, what you want, if anything, and although that can come back again at some stage along the way, because life continues, although for no one, it just continues. I think I've said enough about it. I think maybe.
We've said enough between us.
I think so. It's quite short.
So,
You say more if you want.
questions, answers, comments, discussion or silence. In that case.
Can we have some air conditioning, is it possible? Or fans?
I wish.
Very-
We tried the windows open, it didn't seem to make the room any less stuffy,
So,
but it did make it noisy. So I could open the door and see how that goes. That's probably a good idea. Was there a follow-up question to that?
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a slight worry about the non-duality leaking out into the psychotherapeutic building and affecting it. Hopefully we'll be okay. We might get a rude email on Monday from the secretary saying you left an awful lot of non-duality lying about in the rest of the building. Could you sweep it up in future, please?
Do you tend to lose your sense of ambition, or people that get into that state?
I think for some people actually it can be the converse. Like some people it can actually free them up, free their ambition up. I mean, I've seen that as well, like where someone can go from, maybe there'll be a period of, you know, during the honeymoon period, like where it's a kind of stasis, it's just that absorption, so you don't want to do anything really if you can. But I've seen that movement, that freedom to actually just go after your goal, like that can happen as well. And you may find yourself in a life that makes no sense to you too, because, you know, with that, all the, you know, all the defenses and stuff that are blown, and depending on what your defenses are like, you might just be like, what am I doing in this life with this person and this job, or, you know, so that's where you get the people who maybe just move on and stuff like. So it could go either way. It tends to be a lessening in motivation because there's no drive there. It seems to be more of a kind of flow, and it, like doing whatever kind of feeds you in the moment, because it's not that, it's not so centered on the future in a sense, like, so you're probably more likely to choose something authentic that's more like in keeping with who you really are, you know, unless you're psychologically seeing things a bit skewed anyway, like you know, if you've got issues and stuff you haven't really resolved or whatever. But so yeah, I mean, mostly it does. I think, and I think you find that as well when people are incredibly young. It can be like a deficit in some way in that respect, because their peers are busy engaging with like future plans, doing this, going to uni or whatever, and that may not even, you know, they can't relate. And people who've never actually developed a sense of self, it can be even more difficult in a sense, because they've always been kind of alienated from their peers and not really understood, you know, why people do what they do. It's just what's going on, you know. That's pretty rare as far as we know. It's really rare. But I think like there comes a time where you can really kind of move again, but it's different. It is just more organic, and it's more flowing and more in keeping with, I don't know, maybe a bit more realistic. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if you're living your life maybe unconsciously without realising it, according to other people's ambitions for you, this can be hugely disruptive. It can be. And I've actually told this story at least once before, possibly twice, but I had a one-to-one session with somebody fairly recently, and there'd been a sort of major non-dual awakening, and they had spectacularly blown up their entire sort of, you know, the family side of their life, their relationship, and everything that went with their relation. They had totally, I mean, not consciously, intentionally, in inverted commas, you know, accidentally in inverted commas, but obviously something very authentic. Now, this is my reading of it, you know, something very authentic had erupted from within, and they'd just been unable to continue with the old life, but they'd also been unable consciously to finish it, and so they had instead done something completely innocently, apparently, which any third party could have said, that is absolutely insane. If you do that, that is your life gone as it is at the moment. But they did it, and that's what happened. Their life just completely blew up. And it felt unbelievably healthy to hear this as well. Yeah. So I think that word authenticity is kind of very important. It becomes much more difficult to live the inauthentic life.
I would say, except perhaps emotionally, so authentic in terms of what's true in your life, what you like, what you don't like, but some people are out of touch with their emotions, so that may not correct that. If they're still living through mind, in a sense, they can still kind of be misinterpreting their feelings. They don't even really know what their feelings. It doesn't necessarily put you in touch with it. It puts you in touch with your vulnerability, which is something else. So you're wide open in a sense. Maybe there's less censorship there because there's nothing at stake. But so, to be fully authentic is to be in touch with the emotions and that reality, and to express that, as well as what you do, speaking your truth, and what you do with your life and who's in it and the rest of it. So I think it's only part of it. That it's not the full, it doesn't completely make you authentic. But yeah.
I'm just remembering something Tony Parson says about this quite often, which is that this ruins your life. or at least, and this is my gloss because he punches like that, it certainly ruins, or it may ruin, what we think is our life. If we want our old life, then run away from this as fast as we can. I know somebody who was brought to, not one of my meetings, it was one of Tony's meetings, by a friend of mine, and at the end of it, they explained that they were never coming back, and it was, I like my stories. I like my stories, I don't want to give them up. Hi, non-duality? Okay, buzzing you in.
I like my stories. Don't have to give them up. It doesn't make them real though, but not all of them, to be fair, Yeah, it does. In some senses, it feels like a loss, because all the good stuff that happens, it just doesn't add anything to you. There's no sense of gain. It's which is, I don't know, it's impossible to describe that. It kind of almost neutralizes experience in a funny way as well. Because nothing can be grabbed hold of. It's just this perpetual letting go, and even the words just don't cut it. It's not that either, but it's just, there's that aspect, but the love aspect is the beautiful part of it. Like that, it can be accompanied by a feeling, but that's the grace, that's the blessing, and whatever you can look at it. But I think it's that non-attachment, because there is that, because there's nothing to attach to, there's no one to attach to. In a strange way, we have attachments, but it's experienced so differently because of the timeless dimension, I think. Because everything's happening now, so yes, there are still relationships, but everything is there. It's just there more profoundly, and yeah, like I say, everything's kind of let go as well. It's strange. It's just this total absence of any sense of self, any sense of physicality. It's kind of bizarre if you think about it. It's hard to remember how it was, but I do remember it feeling incredibly real, that there was someone in here, and there was a here, and there was a there. That goes. That's just totally gone. There's just the whole thing, there's just this oneness. God, it is hot in here. Maybe we should open a window. Shall we open a window?
Shall I try?
Yeah, actually, it's just this thing.
Oh, there you go.
So you must have some questions somewhere tucked away. But you do.
Do you ever lose like a sense of cause and effect? Like, for example, I could open the door, but it's like, it's more of a coincidence that the door is opening whilst my hand is there.
Don't really think about that. It's just opening a door. Like, I don't know, like, I don't really... Really? Do you experience that? I don't know, Richard, do you... like...
You see this look on my face as I am struggling with that one.
You still go through the motions and stuff as well, like, you know, and then there's a total expectation. You light a cigarette or something, like, you know, it's gonna, I don't know.
Well, there's an example there, you open the windows, it's killing down.
Yeah.
I don't know if this makes sense. I mean, you know, there's no time, there's just this. Right. My contention, I've probably already said this, my contention is that is both deeply puzzling and also absolutely bleedingly obvious. You know, I mean, just it is obvious, isn't it? There is just this. And it has no duration. You know, I mean, it's not even a second. A second is a beginning, a middle, and an end, and there is just this. So there's no possibility of the things that we're talking about, and yet there is an experience of things like time passing and cause and effect. It's a real puzzle, it's a real bummer. I don't know whether this works or not, but sometimes, what I say, it's like, you know, there's a character. You know, we're talking about the collapse of the sense of self, if you like, the collapse of the person. But unless that coincides with physical death, my bet is that so far for all of us in here it hasn't, unless that coincides with physical death, there's still a kind of a character, if you like, living in apparent time, if you like, a dream character living in dream time. Nathan Gill, I don't know whether this was his own phrase, he was the first person I heard use it, talked about the divine puppet. You know, so I think I used to use the phrase psychophysical organism, and then I was accused by various people in the meeting that is a very unattractive, unromantic way of talking. Anyway, whatever, you know, there's events go on, happenings go on, seeing goes on, hearing goes on, and the character lives in the appearance of cause and effect. So that all goes on as a story. Now, I don't know whether, I mean, I've used this analogy so many times, I don't know if it helps or not, but you know, the analogy of a film. You know, you're watching a film and on the screen there seem to be people, they seem to live in time, they seem to experience cause and effect, but none of that is real. But it's kind of real as an appearance. But actually, and I like this bit of the analogy very much myself, so pay attention to this. No, I do think it's quite a nice analogy, because actually we know that what is on the screen is just a play of light. And actually, and I mean this is really stretching the analogy too far, but if you get up out of your cinema seat and you walk up to the screen and press your nose against it, you will see, you know, that it is just light. I've never had to multitask like this before. By the way, our valiant helper isn't here tonight. Hi, non-duality meeting? Okay, come on up. I think I deserve a bonus actually. Multitasking, I don't find it easy. What was I saying? Yeah, just, I think that's a wonderful metaphor. I mean, you may or may not connect with it. You know, this is a film, you know, the film still goes on, and you'll have to hold on to that question, because I'm not just driving the bus, I'm having to be the bus conductor as well. Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the same. Like, life just goes on the same way, but it's experienced so differently as well, so it's really hard to express that aspect of it. and it's not like the future or past are totally irrelevant. You know, in the moment it can be, and suffering can come up as well, and you're just not living from that as well. So it's. Someone coming?
No, I believe.
Did you experience a shift then, Lee? Or do you... Maybe you don't want to talk about it. I'm sorry, I put you on the spot.
The first, there was an awakening. Thing is, that's been going on since I was born. I can see back to see that it was like that. It was always happening. That like just the emptiness.
Right.
But then there was what we would call an awakening. I don't know, 8 years ago.
8 years ago?
Something like that.
And you still go to the meetings, like, or did you stop going to the meetings after that, or? Thanks for you at the meeting, obviously. But.
It started with me with yoga. It started with that.
Okay.
And there was an awakening like very quickly, like really quickly.
Right.
But then it all closed back up, if you like.
Yeah, like a glimpse sort of thing.
Yeah, but
okay.
it was like, whoa, everything. It was just everything. The first was just, oh.
Well, how many yoga sessions had you done?
No, but it wasn't. It wasn't like physical stuff. It was all energetic. Even I didn't know this at the time, of course. I didn't know this then.
Right.
But anyway, so it all closed back up, and then that contrast was so unbelievable, of course, because it was so bad here. So
yeah. Okay.
bad.
Right.
So
okay.
bad here that first awakening was just, oh my! I've got to get back there.
Right.
I've got to get back there, and then all the effort to try and get back there started.
Right.
I went insane.
Oh, did you?
I was doing maybe 60 hours of yoga a week, like physical.
Wow,
back
Jesus.
to just I've got to get back there.
Right.
I've
okay.
got to get back. That went on for 3 years, maybe something like that.
Gosh, you must have been fit as well.
I got very, very good at yoga.
Yeah. Wow.
I got physical, but I was doing everything, everything like Kriya, Kunda, anything. I've got to get back there.
Right. No.
And I was in that for quite a while, thinking yoga was getting me back there.
Right.
And then I went to see Tony Parsons.
All right. Oh God. Right. Okay.
And because there was a lot of believing going on then that I was getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And then so when I first heard the Tony message, I was like, utterly unacceptable.
Yeah.
Utterly unacceptable. No, I'm getting enlightened here.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. This is bullshit. All that was going on for a while because I'd got so crazy with the yoga. I mean, back in the day, I was an alcoholic, drug addict, all that stuff. Right. I got the same trying to get enlightened. I was the same. Lunatic.
Same energy.
I was the same lunatic that I was.
Self-destructive, isn't it?
As
like
a boozer and all the rest of it. No, I'm getting back there now.
Yeah.
I don't care what it takes. I'm going to get back there.
Oh God.
Oh man, it's so sweet. It's beautiful.
So when did it kind of fall away then?
It's kind of been very violently open, close, and that's because this body is so. It's a story, of course, right? But this body is so used to this protecting itself that it just closes back up.
Right. Okay.
This is what I was telling you earlier about the shoulder and hip protecting the centre that isn't even there.
Yeah, and you're talking about the Kriya, like your arm is.
Yeah. So it's this body just has a tendency, it's been holding on so.
Right.
In a sense, all the yoga went on top of that. In a sense.
Ah, okay.
So it kind of got more separate.
Right. I know I can
more,
picture that.
Oh, it's
But it's not like a loosening up, like so. There's no impact from this, like.
it's just a gradual loosening up.
Okay, so there is. Okay.
The body's gradually loosening up. There's obviously no position here.
Right.
There's obviously no position.
Okay.
So you know what I mean. So here is obviously the same as here, if you
Right.
if you like. There's just nothing there.
Yeah. Okay.
There's
Got
obviously
you.
nothing there.
Yeah.
There's no distance to anything.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Mhm.
But there's still this body going.
Okay.
That's still. When I wake up in the morning, that's still.
Whoa. But the self-destructive energy's gone then, has it?
There's still that pattern sort of coming up.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Is it changed at all,
So
or?
it's changed. It's
Yeah.
changed a lot. Yeah. It's
Okay,
changed a lot,
cool.
and it's rarely believed, even when it's coming up, and
Right.
it's a mess.
Whoa.
if you like,
Right. Okay.
if you like, but it's not. Of course.
Yeah, I get that
It's not.
too.
It's like, oh, right, here's the mess, but so what?
Whoa. So it's been going on forever with you.
But I see that's been going on since I've been born.
Did it isolate you as a kid? Like, did you notice like you were different than your peers and
Oh,
stuff?
totally.
All right.
When it was open,
Uh-huh.
when I was a kid,
Yeah.
there was just brilliance coming out all the time.
Whoa.
Lots
Okay.
of brilliance.
Right.
Like, I was the top in everything.
Really?
Yeah.
And then when you weren't, like,
I was sort of basket case.
oh my god.
So it's
Well,
like
so all your potential was locked in
so it's
that.
like bipolar. If you want to
Yeah.
tell it as a looking at it like that, it looks like bipolar, right? Well,
Right.
of course it would be diagnosed as bipolar, probably. Wow. Yeah.
That's incredible. Like that just tells you a lot. Like people who are just so crippled with anxiety and
It's
stuff,
just
but you don't know what's there.
It's terror. It's terror.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so what I've seen is that when the body was born, if you like, it was born into terror.
Whoa.
Born into it. It was just
Right.
energy was just terror as
Right.
it emerged. Terror, screaming.
Wow.
My mum tells me I screamed for the first 4 years of my life.
Wow. Okay.
That's what all that's about, if you like.
Oh,
I mean, we're getting into whatever, it's all that.
Oh, it's fascinating.
All bullshit, right? But so the desire to get free was massive, but I didn't. It was all going on booze and drugs and all that.
Yeah, of course.
And then when the spirituality came in, Lee thought he had a way out then.
Yeah. Okay. Oh no. Yeah.
Oh, just the brutalness of it all. It's just. Oh.
Whoa.
So yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's all just. I can't tell you there's been an end point. I can't say that. But like I said, there's obviously no position.
Yeah. Right.
There's just obviously not a position here.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds.
So I don't know how else to,
right, doesn't
I don't know how else to say it. And there's variable strength of fullness, if you like.
Which is how it goes. So maybe there's just some trauma there still.
There's a lot
like,
of trauma
yeah,
still. That's
okay.
what I say. These trauma patterns
Just emerging and
like still come up, but they're not. There's no belief in them.
Yeah. Okay. So it's,
And back in the day, they'd have stuck around for maybe weeks sometimes.
right.
Weeks.
So,
And now it might be a day or half a day. Or
oh, that's massive, isn't it?
Something.
But
like
it's
that.
still just got the intensity of
it's
emotional flashbacks.
It seems like every time it comes up,
Uh-huh.
it's worse
Right.
than the previous time.
Oh my god, so full on but just shorter. Like,
If you like, yeah, more intense. But
it's interesting.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing. So like the life of the person's been, if you like, knowing there's brilliance there and none of it being realised because of the
Oh, that's awful.
because of the fear, the terror.
Oh, it's really held you back in life.
big
Oh,
time.
that's brutal, isn't it? So unfair.
But looking at the story of Lee,
Uh-huh.
it looks quite a good story.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does, you know. I used to earn a lot of money. I had a good job, a load of money.
Right.
Lived in Australia, travelled, and all that.
Oh, okay. So you could.
Look at me, big shot bullshit.
Okay.
Did all that,
Right.
but fucking so scared.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, terrified.
Relax right now. There you are.
Yeah.
Uh, that's an interesting one.
Mm.
Uh,
How do we talk about being born and stuff? Like, is that real? Like, when we talk about like the past in that sense, like, surely if there's nothing but now, then we weren't, like, we can't say that we were born and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
So it's like everything
yeah.
else, or if you like, all phenomena, it's both real and unreal.
Mm.
It's not one or the other, it's both.
Mm.
Yeah. So there's only this, and in this, memory arises, and memory relates clearly to a past, which apparently happened. One of the problems with this is, you know, statements like that, you know, sound like they should be philosophical, and therefore, because they're philosophical, they can be dissected and pulled apart and examined, but they're not. They're just attempts to describe something which can't be described. So you could say, well, yeah, of course there's the past arising as a memory,
Yeah.
an apparent memory, arising as a thought, feeling, sensation, whatever, in this.
Yeah.
That's the only possible existence there can be, yeah.
That you can only access a sense of the past right now.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And as a matter of experience, there seems to be a commonality that when this is seen, well, if this is even just partially glimpsed, even in a split second of awakening where just the emptiness of everything is seen and, you know, the love and the fullness and so forth isn't seen, even that can just bring about a radical collapse in the, I'm hesitating, don't know what word to use, the reality, a radical collapse in the perceived reality of the past. You know, the metaphor I've used of this for years is it's like the past goes from being like a three-dimensional landscape to just a two-dimensional picture. It loses its reality. So it's like, yeah, of course there's autobiographical memory in heavy inverted commas. There's factual information in very heavy inverted commas. But the kind of the sort of the personal sense, the investment in the past, and all those lovely, wonderful, yummy feelings that tend to go with that, like regret and guilt and, you know, all of that sort of stuff, tends to just collapse.
I remember the experience of nostalgia really changed for me
Yeah.
when I realised that it was something happening now rather than
Yeah,
a yearning for, like, the yearning for the past was very present, and that changed it somehow.
Yeah.
You know, like, it took the sting out of it somehow.
so it's fallen away in your case as well.
Yeah,
When did that happen for you?
that was a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But before I'd even heard of non-duality.
Did you not know what to make of it then, or?
Well, it was affecting me quite a lot, and then it was my partner actually who mentioned to me something about, well, if you think about it, it's not about loss or about yearning for something lost, because it's like very much here, real now, in a kind of in some sense.
So your partner's awake? Or?
He wouldn't describe himself.
Alright, okay, fair enough.
But I guess so, to a certain extent.
Did he notice the difference in you, like personality-wise, out of curiosity, or?
I still find me intolerable. So I don't know. I'm not sure.
What about you for him? Like, is it really? Maybe it's too personal. Like, I don't know. Like, if you'd be watching this, but.
I think. Yeah, I guess I thought it was a wise thing to say, and I noticed that it changed. It helped in some kind of sense.
Yeah,
so.
great.
Yeah. But that's quite. I think that's quite interesting that it can continue, like it can continue to exist as experience, but as you say, completely, like something fundamentally changes, which allows you to, I don't know, decouple from something. You know?
Has it affected your mind? Like, do you get thought or not? Just curious.
This was, I guess, something that happened which was quite specific to a certain situation. I wouldn't say it necessarily like pervaded a lot of other things.
Oh, right, okay.
If you know what I mean.
Okay.
So, but it's interesting that I'm here now talking about it in relation to this, because now I feel like I've connected some. Well,
Okay,
connected
yeah,
something.
yeah,
I don't know.
okay.
It's hard to say that, but it's there's something happened.
Yeah. It's just you look quite empty to me. Do you know? Like,
really?
but yeah. Just maybe I'm projecting something. But interesting.
There can be quite a radical change in the kind of feelings that are experienced. I mean, I sometimes talk about neurotic feelings. They tend to kind of collapse or lessen or disappear or whatever. So if we're talking about the past, things like regret, nostalgia. You mentioned, I'm thinking what brought that to me is because you mentioned nostalgia. Yeah, absolutely. Nostalgia, regret, guilt. You know, they just tend to either collapse or else have the energy taken out of them.
I find things can have an energy while I'm talking about them, and then the minute I stop speaking, it's gone. It's just gone. Like, you know, like an emotion or whatever. It's just, yeah. I guess that's what keeps it alive, isn't it? Thought or it's so transient. It can be, yeah, like you were saying, Lee. It's really sometimes it can be really intense. Something really vastly intense, and then boom, doesn't leave a trace. It's just kind of bizarre.
It's never happened.
Yeah.
Never even happened.
Because it's just an energy that
Yeah.
just moves through, whereas the kind of the neurotic orientation to feelings hangs on to it, and hangs it onto a story and goes meow, 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 meow for however long, and that's equally true of feelings that are about the apparent future, like, you know, fear, anxiety, da 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 da. And then you're just left with the kind of raw, you know, the raw feeling, the raw emotion, which is there for as long as it's there, but it doesn't attach to a story. Or at least not so much. Yeah. So there's a kind of spontaneity in what we're talking about.
want to go back to your film? before we were interrupted. And when you were saying about going up to the screen and putting your nose against it, etc., and realising it's just projected light, etc., etc. So what part's the screen? So what part does the screen play?
Yeah, this is my cue for saying, well, it is only a metaphor, and all metaphors play there.
Yeah.
So,
There is, I've just heard.
the screen, the cinema, the audience, the projector, the director, the actors, it's actually all obviously, you know, it's the one thing,
Yeah, I was just
the
more
one non-thing. Yeah.
I was more thinking about the actual. It's just it is. I'm regurgitating something. So I might not get it exactly right, but the actual analogy could be that you see the action on the screen and it's marvelous, and you know you're getting into it and your emotions come up and whatever you associate with the screen, but in the end you are the screen.
Yeah, and the projector,
Yeah.
and the light, yeah.
Yeah.
Another image I don't know that I remember from a long time ago in the story of time is it's like a prism and the pure white light.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a resistance to saying this because I do think it sounds a bit poncy, but never mind. You know, the pure white light of being hits the prism and is then split into the multi-colours of the rainbow. Well, you know, if it works, have it. This is the point at which I always say we are, after all, trying to F the ineffable. So we're bound to fail. But there can be a very, very convincing appearance of life and choice and fate and things like that if you look at a film, right? If you're watching a film and it's a gripping film, I don't know, for some reason I always tend to go to Casablanca as my example here, you know, when, you know, I used to kind of have I suppose it's a trick question really, but I've admitted it's a trick question. You know, so at that scene in Casablanca, a very famous scene where Rick is waiting to catch the last train out of Paris, and I can't remember the woman's name. He's waiting for her and she doesn't turn up, and eventually he has to get the train to escape from there. On a scale of 0 to 10, how much agony is he feeling? But remember, it is a trick question. But obviously none, because it's just a character on the screen.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So whether that works, I don't know if that works as a metaphor, but in a way, we are characters on the screen, and the light, and the, yeah.
Shakespeare went there, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we are such stuff as dreams are made of. Yeah.
And all the world's a stage.
All the world's a stage, and
Blah, blah,
blah blah blah. Simply players, yeah. I was trying to fill in the gap, but failed.
Sorry, Richard, but I couldn't.
Well, I find that mildly comforting. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of pointing in mythology, in religion, in philosophy, in literature, to the dream nature of this. To the dream nature. I mean, another thing I sometimes say is, you know, the nighttime dream, it's kind of easy to see through in a way. It's easier to see through because every night we go to sleep into a different dream, or maybe into 5 different dreams. So it seems quite obvious, you know, it's very easy to see through, but every morning we wake up into the same dream, so it's much more difficult to see through. But it's impossible for the character to see through it. I mean, the character could have all sorts of notions about seeing through it, but they're just notions. But if the character collapses, then it just becomes apparent. But this is Gossamer. first mountains are mountains, then mountains are not mountains, because they become gossamer. In a way, this demystifies mysticism, because the person that seems so solid comes across, maybe becomes interested in a kind of mystical pursuit, and comes across all these extremely profound and very, very deep and unfathomable sayings, and then if the person collapses, you realise they're not deep at all, they're just a literal description. What the fuck do the Buddhists mean by, first mountains are mountains, then mountains are not mountains, then mountains are mountains again. What the hell does that mean? And 20 years later I'm still sitting in a cave trying to fathom that out, and then the self collapses, and there's nothing to fathom out there. It's not deep. It's not a puzzle, it's not even a koan, it's just an attempt, a failed attempt, because the attempt has to fail. It's just an attempt to describe something, to put into words something, to put into words an experience when it's not an experience and it can't be put into words. There's nothing mysterious about that. The same with, before enlightenment, Hugh would draw water. After enlightenment, Hugh would draw water. There's nothing deep or mysterious about that. It's just a literal, life goes on. Why should anything change? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. The point of that is that before a person hews wood and draws water, and afterwards wood is hewn and water is simply drawn. That's not an easy thing to say.
When the me drops away, people, do they tend to have a time out from life and sit on a bench or not work, and then later on they come back and work?
There is a tendency. Yeah, there are some famous examples, aren't there, of that, people sitting around for 2 years or more just sitting on a bench.
Yeah, I'm one. I'm not famous, but
But on the other hand, if the mortgage has to be paid, then probably.
They'll do the duties they need to do.
Probably, yeah. Unless it's okay to live in a ditch rather than in a house, the mortgage, yeah.
it makes sense because it's endlessly entertaining, just sitting there. It's you want to, because anything that life offered you does not compare with that. So you're just sitting is more fulfilling than any, amazing event, amazing making money. It is just so. I think you just absorb in that. It takes a good while to kind of just be more getting on with life after that. It depends how deep it is in a sense. You could say there's no depth to it, but awakening's awakening, but some cases there seems to be more levels of absorption, or say Eckhart Tolle, if the mind totally goes in this and there's just total emptiness, there'll be more tendency to sit because it's kind of sweeter. So yeah, and the more you rest as well, it seems to you seem to drop more into it, it just seems to become even more absorbing. So yeah, if you can, you would, and anyway, even when you're rushing around, the stillness is just so profound in any case, but nevertheless, it's nicer to sit, but yeah. stillness and everything, stillness and noise and yeah, I remember because I'd just walk and sit, and I'd like to sit by the road sometimes and watch the cars, and then I'd like to watch the ducks. I like the cars as much as the ducks, you know, like it was just, but yeah, I could just do that all day long, you know, like.
But there's not a dream to say, go live by Lake Geneva in a log hut and stay there forever.
Well, some people do. I mean, that's more rare, isn't it? When somebody goes off and it does happen, I'm sure. Like, but I think after, like, it just becomes normal life. You just sort of, because I mean, I can't remember how it was really. I mean, sometimes people, if I'm talking about something, I remember, oh my God, I must have felt. I could see, like, I must have felt really identified, like, in the past or something. But yeah, at a certain point, it's just more normal life, and you'd be maybe moved to do something you haven't. You know, maybe you just get in touch with something like self-actualize, something that you never, something you wanted to do and never did, or whatever it is, or just, you know, because it's, I mean, sometimes, I don't know, it's just, yeah, it's just normal.
The ordinary life is good enough, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
No, I think usually, but not invariably, yeah, there is eventually an energy comes up just naturally to move back out into life again, but maybe into a very different kind of life if that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not always, but that's generally what happens. Yeah.
Depends how many as well, like what's blown away is how many defences, and I mean, some people just never have been able to move, and it's like, this is the first, you know, it's like a start, and like it's just a chance to actually do something, like, and maybe fear's blown away so you can move, or like with me, but like it was, you know, couldn't have really properly sort of intimate relationships in a certain sense, so that fear of commitment and all that went for me, and it's like, oh right, I can, you know, like it just, these possibilities opened that were never there before, and like I couldn't understand that fear. I could just see that was the psychopathology and the self-destruct. There was so much self-destruction here. You know, like I was suicidal, tried to kill myself 3 times, so that kind of just, bang, you know, like, school, because it doesn't age well, that one, like, you know, it's like, but yeah, it's yeah, just because there is such a sanity comes from it, such a sense of equilibrium, even when life is batshit crazy, like there's this sort of groundedness that's just there, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm finding something like that's happening with me, where the me doesn't really seem to have potency anymore, doesn't seem to have importance, and there's many, many days where even the most mundane, ordinary things are bright and alive, and I could be walking down a road, and it could be a road I've walked down hundreds of times, but there's an aliveness that wasn't there before. And overall life is progressively, appears to be getting easier and easier.
Yeah, forget about that aspect. It does. Everything's brighter and more vivid, and
especially nature. Nature can have a beauty that just.
It's a magic, isn't it?
Yeah,
like
it's magical.
Stuff. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And how long's it been going on for you?
I've only known about non-duality for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual search or healing journey for decades, and quite traumatic. Terrifying at times,
Right.
but the terrifying is gone. So when things do arise for the me, they don't seem to have that potency, and there is a capacity to just sit there with it, and it passes.
Right. So it's really freed you up then.
Yeah. I'm not saying I'm free, but
okay, but
things,
it's
there's definitely a freedom and an ease and a peace. Even since I first met you, let's say in the last 4 months, things have changed. But it seems to be accelerating in the sense that things have changed in the last month or so.
Okay, so it's just gradually deepening, or
definitely.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah.
Are you sitting around a lot then in nature? Are you?
Yeah. Fortunately, when I open the curtains in the morning, I've got a beautiful view, trees and flowers and things. So yeah, sometimes it's just It's just okay to look out the window.
Okay, and you never had that, where were you kind of blasé about that when before?
No relevance, because I was caught up in my own trauma and ritualistic behaviour and anxiety and fear, and so that still arises, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have potency.
It's lost its grip. It's losing its grip.
It's losing its grip, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And there's a love and a respect for others that wasn't there before. A compassion and understanding.
Yeah, that's nice, that aspect as well. That sort of sense of familiarity, you know, like no one's a stranger kind of thing.
Yeah,
That's kind of
yeah.
beautiful, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
But definitely the, what do they call it, the monologue has slowed down.
oh,
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
there's always an impact in the mind. I think
Mm.
some cases blown completely, but it's always slowed. There's always that sort of before and after. I think from all the research and I think that's pretty, you know, standard. Yeah.
And I think there's a part of me, an old part of me, that's trying to hold on.
Oh, yes.
Grip, hold its grip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, bad luck, hopefully. Nice time of year for
Yeah.
dropping
letting go.
away.
Definitely, definitely, yeah.
Trees are very important.
Sorry?
I said trees are very important.
Yeah.
Please don't ask me to justify that statement, because there is no way on earth that I could intellectually. I wouldn't even bother to, but trees are very important.
It's just so grand, trees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the stillness, you know, it's the visual component to that too. Like it's breathtaking. I think just looking at a tree is just, it's different. And woods and stuff, like it's so potent being in a wood, isn't it? It's magical, and I don't know, experience that, but it's.
What I loved is like when the trees are blowing in the wind, it's like they're all like dancing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In the dark even. It's just always different shades of light. It's just lovely.
Yeah, I feel like there's quite a lot of wisdom in trees.
Yeah.
Just like what a stillness over so many years as well. That's one thing, but regardless of that,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, this stage that I'm at can be bewildering and strange, but it's definitely better than who I was.
Is it bewildering and strange in a very unstrange, unbewildering way, or like?
Yeah. It can be bewildering, it can be strange,
Okay.
but then there's definitely a welcoming of even that.
Okay.
There's a
yeah,
welcoming of the strange,
Yeah.
and what I can say is definitely better than life for the individual, for the person believing in the story a few
Oh.
years ago.
Oh yeah, yeah, for
Definitely
sure.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there has to be
Yeah.
before and after for sure. Like,
Mm.
even though there is no before and after, etc., etc. But yeah,
Well, I mean, one split second of awakening can be absolutely shattering
Yeah.
to what this thought, its worldview was, if you like, you know, how the world worked, how reality was. It can be absolutely shattering.
Mm.
So many belief systems that, you know, this didn't even realise it had can just be destroyed in a moment.
Mm. I think for me, perhaps those moments of awakening are happening constantly, and it's not that beliefs are shattering, but they're definitely becoming questionable. But this, it's just my belief. I'm feeling a bit scared today. I'm feeling frightened or anxious or whatever. But it doesn't have a hold.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not real. Doesn't seem real.
So you must be acting quite differently in response to situations.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's generally, I would say, peace and ease is emerging. And if a response takes place, that response is easier. It's not
Okay.
loaded with anxiety. Whether it's a phone call to someone, whether it's something difficult, whether it's whatever, it's easier.
Right.
And things get done rather than stuck in the anxiety of the anticipation.
Oh, procrastination is gone then to a certain extent? or-
Diminished, yeah, definitely.
That's a killer, isn't it?
Yeah, procrastination, where I might think about something for a day and then it becomes a week, and I think, well, leave it for now, deal with it next
Oh, right,
week.
okay. Yeah, okay.
That
so
was
different-
that was before.
Oh, alright, okay.
Now, procrastination is definitely not such a big deal.
Still procrastinate, but just don't worry about
But I mean, also, if there are stories running this, whatever this is, this divine puppet, if there are stories running it about what this is about and how it works, kind of religious stories, metaphysical stories, spirit. I mean, this was the carcass of an extremely devoted spiritual seeker for many, many years. There were masses and masses of stories, and kind of in a way, that collapsed within a split second, which is extremely disorientating, but also extremely freeing.
Yeah. And feeling in the body has emerged, as opposed to this running the show all the time.
Oh, for the first time? Like
First time, I've very
Wow.
much been a computer,
Oh, right.
analysing and processing the world and feeling in charge and being the managing director of my life, and that's dropping away. And yes, physical feeling is emerging.
Oh, right, okay.
Sit on a seat and go, comfortable.
Oh, right, okay, and it's very nuanced and...
That's
Yeah.
relatively new for me. Last
Okay.
few months.
Okay, right, so I guess that's why the question the beliefs as well, because it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
going to that. So you kind of like, your intuition is kind of ramped up then, is it quite
Oh yeah,
strong?
yeah. My intuition, I think, was strong anyway, but I didn't used
Okay.
to pay much attention to
Of
it.
course, yeah,
The
I've done
thinking,
that.
thinking would overlay the
Yeah,
intuition.
yeah, it's common, isn't
Now there's a trust and almost a sort of acceptance and trust of
Okay.
what's going on. Just, it's okay. This is just what's happening.
it? Right. Is it? So it's improved your relationships and
Yeah,
all that?
yeah, definitely.
Oh, cool. What about, so I was going to ask you about your negative emotions. You get like...
Yeah, like I was just going to say, a familiar resentment might arise where something took place in the past, something challenging took place in the past, business or otherwise, and just doesn't hold.
Okay, just like that. Okay, yeah, sure.
I can, instead of it playing games with my mind for days,
Yeah.
it's minutes now.
Wow. Okay. It's pretty awesome. Sorry, Richard. You're going to say something.
No, memory's gone, so
All right. Okay. Oh,
that
no.
was more than 2 seconds
Probably your
ago,
best.
so it's
Oh,
gone.
you mentioned something about memory last time.
Yeah.
I found that as well. There isn't the memory.
Memory gone,
Memory.
fucked beyond belief is not my expression. It's a quote
Yeah.
from an Australian writer about this. Yeah.
Memory, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet somehow, I don't know, somehow things get done, things get managed.
I find things get managed better.
Yeah. Yeah. The character does not forget where they live.
Yeah.
Does not find themselves putting their front door key into some random house because they can't. Yeah. it turns out that that kind of driven memory is not really all that necessary. But it's a very common experience. Yeah.
I find that there's a lot less belief in feelings now. Like it used to be that feelings and emotions used to have like an associated story with them, and so other memories would start to pop up. And now it's just like, and you know, that's when like the sort of time would like come back with it, and then more probably over the past couple of days or so, like, I mean, when I started noticing like the feelings and stuff started to just come, and then I'd start to notice that there was a story coming with it, and then noticing that is just, alright, forget about that story, and then it's just pure emotion, or just, but then like what is emotion, and then it just starts to feel kind of like more physiological.
Yeah.
And it's
Absolutely.
and then it just starts to feel like an energy that seems to come and go. Yeah, and it just starts to get, everything just gets really spontaneous, like there's no past or future. Yeah. And I guess like I started to feel like there's the loss of cause and effect, because it felt like that itself was a story, like I'm doing these things, and that itself was just like the most primitive type of story right there. I'm opening this door, and so it's just like everything's just a coincidence, everything's just a happening. Yeah, but the mind just doesn't want to, like, it just you know, carries on. I mean, just out of nowhere, but then it's like even thoughts themselves are just part of, you know, what's happening.
Yeah, the mind goes on doing its own sweet thing until it doesn't.
Yeah.
It tends to do it in a less gripping way, or it may not do it at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just sort of habits start cropping up. Basically, it's just the mind. There's loads of habits.
Yeah.
It's funny, it seems to have lost its linear quality. You know, like a memory doesn't seem to have, that was very long ago. That, you know, just even thinking about it, it's kind of bizarre in a way. Like there is no sense, like it really is collapsed in that sense, but it's something that happened 20 years ago, something that happened a year ago. You know, there's no difference, you know, like it's, and that's kind of, that's what I experience here anymore. But
Yeah, time and space has just collapsed, really. So there's no way to measure it anymore.
Yeah, memory, it's almost like it just becomes information. I mean, the information's still there, but just as information.
It's just, yeah, like you said, it's like from 3D to 2D.
Yeah. Yeah, this isn't senility. The information is still there, but it loses its importance, it loses its reality. Yeah.
If there's trauma there, of course there'll be a charge to some memories. I think most people have one or two, you know, or if there's a lot of trauma, there could be a lot of charge to stuff. Or just the big emotional flashbacks that don't actually have any thinking attached to it or image, do you know, like. So, I mean, it can happen anyway, really.
Yeah, it's like trauma is just excessive belief in feelings and thoughts.
I don't know, you don't want to say that's just a massive trauma, like, but it is just, well, yeah, but it's in the body, so it's about as real as it gets for, like, you know, you can't really argue with it in that sense, but yeah, okay, nothing's ultimately real, but I don't know.
I find the old patterns break easier. My head is going round and round with a vast amount of anger about something, and then suddenly it stops.
Oh yeah.
I don't even analyse it now. I think, oh, good.
The reality to it just goes when it, the other feeling.
Yeah, yeah. And I notice patterns. It's more likely to happen when it's 5 minutes after I've watched the news.
Ah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm watching the news a bit less, because it's all that's
There
doing
is
is
a solution, yeah.
reinforcing the same.
I was going to say, there is a solution to that one.
Yeah, yeah. I need far less
Turn the
news.
switch off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that reality, you know, the emotional reality goes suddenly, you can just, just snap out of it, the whole thing just disappears, doesn't it? It's just,
Yeah. The therapist
Sorry.
wants to say the trauma would never go. It would diminish and less control. But my idea that I'd get rid of it all, he said, forget about it. It just stops mattering. I mean,
yeah, just accepting it, maybe, but
yeah.
I mean,
There's still patterns in my life, but it's leads to when I was about 2 years old, so I can find this.
so you're done with doing something with it, just
Yeah.
getting on with it.
But eventually, yeah, it plays out, it loses its energy.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I got diagnosed with bipolar, and that's it's useful for a while. I just tried everything. I even tried their drugs, but I didn't stay with them for very long.
Oh, right, right, with the quite heavy duty, isn't it? And
Yeah, antipsychotics. People told me I was going half speed because they noticed it more than I did. And
all right, did you get weight gain and all the lovely stuff?
I've got weight gain anyway.
All right, okay, fair enough.
No, I tried to figure it out, but I have no idea. I read articles on the web about why some people are weighing more. All kind of weird ideas about how we should all be eating differently. It's too much effort.
So your mood swings less, are they? Or are you kind of less?
Oh, far less, far less.
Yeah, okay.
I notice, on certain extremes I notice. If I suddenly feel like going without sleep for a few days, I'm a bit wary of doing that.
Oh, right, okay, because it would...
Yeah. Yeah, in certain extremes it's just not there. I have dreams in which people are violent and I'm no longer scared.
You don't get scared in your violent dreams?
No, I just go and calm people down.
Do you? What in your dreams?
So when 10 years ago, the violent dream, I'd be really terrified.
Well, that's bizarre.
I talk to people and then they calm down.
Right, okay, wow. I've never heard of that.
So the violence and madness is still there, but somehow I'm not.
Whoa.
So you're a dream mediator.
No idea. Channel reading, I said, it convinced me for a while that if you're waking up and you're asleep, you're meeting people all around, people who are alive and dead, helping them out.
That's really...
It's a lovely story, you know. For a while I believed it, but now it's just a lovely story.
Yeah.
When did you start having dreams like that?
Last year or two, I think.
Like, is it common or not?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
It's interesting. I've never heard anyone say anything like that before.
Yeah.
So you must be really healthy at some level. Like, if you were going for like a psychological interpretation of your dreams, I mean, that's really... It's funny.
It's almost as if sometimes there's an expectation socially to talk about one's life. If you meet somebody new, they might ask about the past.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I do talk about the past, it doesn't seem like my past anymore. It's a story, literally. And then even talking about the most traumatic things there's no real energy there. And it literally feels like I'm telling a story. Could be reading from a book, yeah, and then this happened.
Yeah, okay. I think it becomes more normal over time, because I remember that flagging up for me because I had to do therapy during my training, and just I felt like a phony talking about my life. It felt really weird. It's like, yeah, and whereas now it's just easier to do that, and it's nice to connect over it and also join the dots on things, and you know, because I find the story fascinating. Like, yeah, it's not real like it was, but it's still fascinating, and yeah, it's something you've got, and it's unique, isn't it? It's not yours, but it is your story, if you know what I mean. So.
And it's known that what you're talking about isn't dissociation. I don't know how it's known, but it's just known. It's just obvious, you know, when that kind of characteristic that you're talking about. It's completely obvious that, no, that's not what it is. Some energy has genuinely just gone out of this, and, you know, it's gone from 3D to 2D. And it can be interesting and amusing or whatever, or it can provide a connection with another apparent person to talk about stuff, but the reality isn't there anymore.
I think it's easier to talk about because also the shame and stuff, like, cause a lot of that goes out the window because the idea of failure's not there, and the idea of getting it wrong, it doesn't matter anymore. So there's that freedom of like embracing, you know, all the bad bits of it as well. I think that's really nice, because I used to be so ashamed of my story, like not all of it, but bits of it, and
I know about that one, yeah.
yeah, okay. It's common enough, isn't it?
It's as if the past was there, the story was there when needing to be told, dissociation existed in order to tell the story, and I forget what I was going to say now, and there was an element of shame, extreme sort of shame and fear. Companions of shame and fear.
Yeah,
shame and guilt, very juicy. Very much belonging to the person, of course. So I believe, you know, because I'm responsible for all of that the person feels, so of course, yes, guilt and shame.
I think shame can still arise. I mean, it doesn't so often, but like, yeah, for sure. Things that aren't spoken about as well. So that's that thing, you know, if you've got a secret, or once you talk about something, it can take the power out of it, can't it? Like,
of course,
yeah.
I find there can be fear of sharing something or being oneself, elements of shame, but once that can be overcome very quickly.
Yeah.
And once it's overcome, the potency isn't there anymore.
Yeah, sharing the right environment, I think that's
sharing the right environment.
Yeah, therapy training, you do a lot of that, and it is just the miracle of like not being judged, isn't it? And also this seeing is that there's no judgment; it's just the same. It's an instant. It's much quicker, like, but.
I find that with there's a challenge in therapy because the therapist wants you to really regurgitate everything that happened or talk about things in a way that implies victimhood. And for me to see a therapist today, I'm not sure if I'd want to.
I am a therapist, by the way. But there is, I mean, to me, there is a point in going through that, because if you don't see through the pattern, it does repeat whether you're awake or not. Like, that's what I've seen. I'm seeing that with people after awakening, like, and it happened here. I mean, so many things were blown away, but not everything. Like, so I don't know. So I think it is important, and just like I say, like certain things you don't talk about, and then shame. But that's me. I mean, maybe therapy isn't free, you know. And sometimes after awakening, people just can't be asked with it, and they're not that interested, but.
Oh, I have one line about therapists which I have repeated over and over and over again, almost endlessly, which is that, you know, if there is this, even a feeling for what we're talking about here, let alone an actual seeing, then it's best to go to a psychotherapist who isn't there.
Yeah.
which I hope is obvious what I mean by that, you know, a psychotherapist where there's also this realisation, seeing whatever it is that you want to call it.
Absolutely, yes.
Because otherwise, I'm not saying otherwise there will be, of course not, you know, but otherwise there's a greater danger that there's going to be a mismatch and the psychotherapist is going to have their agendas. I mean, I've done a lot of therapy training, but I've also done a lot of therapy practice as a client. And because of my nature at the time, I was drawn very strongly to transpersonal, spiritual. The orientated psychotherapist is absolutely wonderful, but it's so full of story about what this is about. You know, and what this is about is very important as well. So the story is incredibly important. So, I mean, for me to kind of be sitting in a room with a psychotherapist who was like that now, you know, it would be unbearable.
I think.
But there are quite a lot of psychotherapists out there who aren't there.
I think for me, if I was going to a psychotherapist who was awake and didn't think the story was important, I wouldn't want to pay them anything. Do you know, like, do you know, like, I guess that can happen as well.
Did you say yeah? Okay.
Just because of what I've come through after awakening, it's like, whatever. It's like, yeah, I guess I do see the importance of that. It doesn't matter whether some people will, some people won't want to go there or whatever, but just to sit there and presence or whatever some people, I've heard some people speak like that. I mean, what would you do in bloody therapy anyway? Do you know? I mean, I have sat there in bliss states with my therapist before, like, but, you know, but unless there's something coming up for you that you want to explore, I mean, for sure, it's just a waste of time, but I have heard some people speak about that. Some people who are psychotherapists who are awake talk about just this sort of energetic thing that goes on. I sort of think, really? People pay you for that?
You want to pay £65 an hour for an energetic
well, that sounds
thing?
easy at one level, but I think I get bored even though there's no boredom. Like, but that just wouldn't, do it for me, I think.
What type of therapy did you train in, or?
It's transpersonal integrative, so it's all the different modality, like, you know, Jungian, Kleinian, Freudian, all the everyone, existential, and then it's got that transpersonal aspect. So it does include the non-dual, you know, so not something you can attain, but I think a lot of people take it that way because of the way people always assume that it's a path, but it's not really towards a path. It's kind of towards a path and not as a path at the same time, if you know what I mean. Sort of.
But the non-dual is an extremely broad church. I don't know if you've noticed, you probably have.
Sorry?
I said the non-dual is an extremely broad church now, and you know, I mean, there's an awful lot of, there's a great deal of stuff, which I find it very difficult to sort of see it as a communication about non-duality.
That's probably bound to happen.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Given the nature of confabulation and invention.
And the nature of the apparent mind and the desire to make things more and more and more and more complicated and complex. Of course.
I used to do like Reiki healing for quite a while and sort of like ran off one day. And I just stopped because I just got so fed up with the sort of this Reiki work, washes whiter than white.
Yeah.
You know, use this crystal and stick this flower up in your left ear. And, kind of like more of the sort of, what I kind of call the Brahma Rama Karma drama.
Yeah, because the monkey mind thrives on complexity. Yeah. Yeah.
really hot.
Yeah, we've run out of options, haven't we? We've got the door open, we've got the windows open.
What's that thing on the table? That's not a.
A fan?
That's a humidifier, isn't it? Oh, right.
Could it be a fan?
There's probably fans in the therapy rooms. I'm not going to go in. There's only 20 minutes left. It's not worth it. Sweat it out, yeah.
So do any of you do one-on-one sessions with, do you guys take on clients to do a one-on-one session? Like,
I do one-on-one sessions which tend to be one-off.
What was the question?
One-on-one sessions do you do?
Oh, one-to-ones. I do psychotherapy and I do one-to-ones. So I've got clients. Yeah, started doing one-to-ones as well. So why do you ask?
just wondering, I mean, why would you not do it? I thought you should. Why would you not?
Why would you not do one-to-ones?
Yeah.
Because maybe you can be asked. I don't know.
Well,
It's
great
work,
income.
isn't it?
I mean, as a source of income.
Boring. I don't know. Like depends who you get. Yeah. Well, it depends how much you charge too. Like.
Yeah.
I don't know. I quite like. I mean, one-to-one's one thing, but I quite like that as ongoing. You know, getting to know someone a bit over time. And I find that it's kind of something nice. That kind of one-off as well. Like there's I suppose less responsibilities. Quite nice too because there's. But anyway.
So you do see clients off and on?
Yeah. Yeah.
And where is your practice?
It's in Paddington, CCP, so Warwick Avenue. Nice big building, very nice.
What's CCP? Communist Party.
So, Centre for Counselling and Psychotherapy Education.
So that's your day job?
But yeah, we do a bit of that. I'm a writer. I'm writing a book at the minute as well. So.
About non-duality?
No, it's just a scandalous book. It's a scandalous book.
It's
a lot juicier than non-duality. Yeah.
Are you taking advance orders?
I think there are 2 in me. There's another one after this. Just a scandalous. This is the first.
And so when do you have a deadline when this book's going to come out? At the end of the year?
Oh, I have to get a publisher. Yeah, I've nearly finished the first one. I'm in the editing stage of the first one. So yeah, maybe it's a good thing and shame 'cause it stops you doing things like writing scandalous books.
Yeah.
But like, gone.
Or shamelessly earn money.
Yeah, well, yeah. If you're lucky to get a publisher, it's good damn worth it. But
You can self-publish, can't you, these days?
yeah, it's more common now, isn't it? It's this.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not frowned upon as it was, but it's kind of a last resort. Like
yeah.
you know. But
It's not the same as that $1 million contract, is it?
they really like.
Probably doesn't feel the same at all.
It doesn't feel the same, I'm sure.
And non-duality books. I mean, you've got 5?
4.
4. Okay, you've got 4.
Which is far more than anybody should respectably.
Yeah, but they're not publishing them anymore, really.
They're not publishing them anymore, are they? No,
Uh,
no. Oh, the good old days have gone. Yeah.
So yeah, self-publishing's
That's
the only way for that stuff. I haven't even written one. Everybody did, but I think that's gone out the window too, isn't it? Not everybody's bothering to write one.
Well, that's shameful. Everybody's supposed to write one.
I started one.
Compulsory.
What? Yes,
Compulsory.
I think it should be compulsory. I think there should be a certifying board for
Yes,
non-duality
exactly.
speakers.
Exactly.
If you haven't written a book, you shouldn't even be allowed to apply for accreditation.
Some sort of structure like a religion or something like that, yeah.
Well, you can see this, yeah. I mean, I used to talk a lot about, you know, how this inevitably will become more and more structured like a religion, and you can see it happening, of course, and the kind of, you know, the feuds and the wars and so forth. Yeah.
They come across as a bit obvious though, like you get like gurus and those kinds of teachers, like they come across with some kind of style, I think. Like if we're talking about nothingness, like what's there to talk about, right?
I think there is a bit of an antidote in this, so that cut, yeah, yeah.
Which books do you like? Like which books would you recommend looking to, or which teachers or speakers?
Your own, it's mine.
Well, it would have to be, obviously it would have to be my own. How could it be otherwise?
And apart from your own?
Apart from my own? Oh God, well, I haven't read a lot, to be honest, and I certainly haven't read a lot for a long time. I like Leah Harting's book. I don't even know if it's available anymore, Awakening to the Dream. Tony's first book, definitely, The Open Secret. And Nathan's book? I can't even remember the name of it.
Oh, right, never read it.
Yeah. I'd say Tony's,
Tony.
the first one particularly, The Open Secret, and As It Is, and maybe Leah Harting's, but there's so much around now, I don't, you know, yeah.
Which is your favourite one of your own? And
Of my own?
Yeah.
yeah, what's your...
Oh, you can't have favourites in much your children.
Can you not?
I like the first one because I like the first very short one.
I Hope You Die Soon.
Yeah, yeah, I like that one, yeah. And I like the last one, but it's got nothing to do with non-duality. So.
What made you write that one? The
What
confession?
made me?
Yeah, well, just the desire
I
to
mean,
share
what
your
is it?
seeking years.
Like
or-
everything else, you know, it's a loaded question, isn't it? There's so many assumptions in that question. What made me pick up the sweets from the table? But taking the question and the spirit that it was meant, it just felt like fun. That's all. An energy came up and it felt like fun. And actually, you put me up to it.
I did put you up to it.
So all its success and failings are entirely down to you.
At least you enjoyed writing it.
But
more
I
than the
did
others.
enjoy writing it very much. Yeah.
I've got it. I've read bits of it.
You've read bits of it.
I hardly ever managed to finish a book cover to cover.
Well,
put
I
a
think you should
bookmark
make
in.
an exception.
Of course.
I don't think I've read bits of it quite cut to the mouth.
All right.
To be honest. No, that's entirely. I'm very impressed that you even own a copy. And that copy that you own will buy me a cappuccino in Nero's probably. So that's very good. Yeah. No, it was great fun too. It's a mischievous book, and there's great fun being mischievous. Yeah.
And it's nice reading someone's version of their seeking years.
Yeah.
I think we all have our seeking years.
Yeah.
It's not seeking days,
And
seeking years.
Yeah, seeking years indeed. And I know from a lot of conversations I've had that of course, how could it not be? There's a lot of commonality.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. So people recognise themselves very much in what I did, yeah. But I did rather go at it hammer and tongs,
All right.
as they say, yeah, for a good few years.
You wrote it quite quick.
Hmm?
You wrote very quickly that last book, didn't you? You wrote it quite.
Yeah.
Well, when you say hammers and tongs, is it hard work then?
No, I can almost the opposite. no. I mean, but yeah, I mean, there was a very strong energy to get on with it and do it because it was very enjoyable. I don't know why. Yeah. Yeah.
The writing of it.
Yeah.
Is it about the writing? Does the if you like, the not the receding but maybe the weakening of the memory, does that affect the writing? Because you don't have such, you might have had a far stronger, I don't know, emotional energy, feelings, back whenever that happened.
I think it makes it easier.
Makes it easier.
Probably easier, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the weakening, I mean, as I was saying earlier, it's nothing to do with losing the kind of, in inverted commas, autobiographical data. The data's still there,
It's the
as it
attachments
were.
that-
It's the attachment that's not there, exactly.
It's not
Yeah.
via the mind anyway. I mean, because it's just the keyboard's doing the memory. Do you know, like it's just coming out, isn't it? It's
It is a magical process. isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is. I
Yeah.
think anyone can access that too, can't they? It is bizarre. Writing is bizarre, and you remember so much more than you thought you did. You can really,
Yeah, when you're doing it.
yeah.
Really being in the flow of any activity is a kind of, it's not really quite what we're talking about, but there's definitely a similarity.
So,
That being in the flow and then the self either diminishes or maybe completely disappears. You know, I mean, they make a big thing of this in Japan, don't they? With sort of Zen and the art of archery and Zen and the art of
Well,
flower
sports
arranging.
coaches.
Sports coaches actually, you know, you lose yourself in that. I mean, I think you can push the parallel too far, and I wouldn't do that, but there's a kind of similarity, you know, to get into the flow of anything is, you know, and the sort of, to lose the self in that sense,
Yes, yeah.
rather than as quite as we're talking about it here, can be beautiful. Yeah. And also creative. It's something about, you know, that creative energy is there and it's getting myself out of the way so that it can manifest itself.
That's good.
I think when I review that little bit on the video, I might decide I don't want to put it up on my YouTube channel. I'm not sure. But no, there is a kind of.
Good harm sales.
There is a. What?
Good harm sales.
Why are your sessions one-off sometimes? Do you achieve massive breakthroughs?
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody needs any more than one with me, and that's it. It's all over. Blah, 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 blah. No, nothing like that at all. Although if I did say that, I'd probably be able to afford a new pair of jeans. No, it's just that usually what people want to have sessions with me about is something fairly specific about non-duality, rather than some ongoing thing. Because I'm not offering therapy. So that's, so it might be one session, it might be 2 or 3 maybe, but usually not more than that. Yeah, it's
And
usually
yours
to,
are all-
to clarify something around what we're doing here this evening.
Yeah. And yours are on Zoom? Or
If they have to be.
okay. Otherwise
Well, yeah, in person if people, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes people, yeah, in person.
okay.
Or if they have to be on screen, they'll be on screen, but
No, in person I would guess is much better, yeah.
yeah. I don't know what it is about Zoom. I've sort of I seem to have become allergic to it. I don't know if it's the sense that the person I'm talking to might be wearing pyjamas from the waist down or what it is, but it's just something, you know, it doesn't suit me. I'll cut that bit out as well. I hope somebody's got something really, really profound to ask or say now, because we've got 5 minutes.
I make announcements, so I was going to make a couple of announcements.
Yeah,
Right, okay, I'll just do that. So I'm doing something next week, next Friday, with Hamish Stansfeld. Same time. So yeah, Friday the 30th, 7 to 9, here at the Philadelphia Association, and on Kundalini. We haven't been talking about that, Kundalini and non-duality. And then I was also going to say that John Aston, non-duality speaker from Los Angeles, is coming over to the Philadelphia Association on Friday the 7th of July and Saturday the 8th of July. I think on the Saturday he's doing 10 to 4 and Friday 7 to 9 here. And he's also doing a Bristol talk on the 10th, Monday the 10th. But you can look him up on his website. So he's johnaston.com, and yeah, so he's the singer-songwriter, non-duality speaker, professor of health psychology, and professor of clinical psychology, adjunct professor of clinical psychology. Yeah, does lots of other things. So yeah, that's a kind of, he hasn't been over here in years, so if you want to check him out, there you go, I've done what I said I'd do. I don't know when my next meeting is next month. If you want to check it out, I just want to meet up because I have no idea when it is, but it's next month. And so, have you got any announcements?
Well, I was going to be doing a Saturday meeting on July the 22nd or 23rd, whichever the Saturday is, but they just announced a rail strike for that day, so that will not be happening. So I'm not sure yet. There may be a different Saturday in July, or there may be another of these evening meetings. There's a piece of paper over there. I've got a meet-up group, but I've also got an email list. So if anybody isn't on my email list and wants to be, just sort of, if you could put your email, but write it really clearly so I can read it on there, and then you'll get notifications of any talks. But as I say, there's also the meet-up group you can join if you want to. So hopefully there'll be another meeting in July, but at the moment it's up in the air because of Asleth.
Yeah. That's it really? I think we're kind of done.
Anyone wants to rush in with a really, really difficult question in the last 2 minutes? No, good. So anything else?
No.
We're going up. We're going up to the copper.
Yeah, if you want to join us.
Copper, whatever it's called.
It's probably copper catalyst, copper.
It's never what I think it's called. So anyway, if you want to come and come for the copper cup or whatever it's called, across the road. If you don't know where it is, just follow us. I've got to get that back to Tunbridge as well, so I will not be hanging around very long. But anyway.
Yeah. So yeah. That's it.
So I think that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Press the
coming,
right
everyone.
button.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
It's been a pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Good.